Hello viewers, this is going to be an update to my Quantel Paintbox V-Series repair, trying to get working series of videos. It's been a while since my last update, I'm sorry, but there's been a number of things that have happened sort of consecutively, very close to each other. I kept on meaning to do an update video, but I knew there was something either coming in the post or there was some bit of techie detail that I was waiting on that was hopefully going to turn into an update video. So that all got delayed, so this is it. Now this might be a bit of a waffly video, I'm afraid. There's not going to be too much playing around with electronics in this one. I just want to get everybody up to speed on what's been going on. So after my last update video where I was looking at removing some of the buffer ICs off the CPU board because I thought they might be causing a problem with communication over the backplane to the other cards, there has been a number of people trying to help me, which is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for everybody's help. I've had ICs coming over from Finland. I've found a number of people on the Vintage Radio forum who have been helping as well. One of those is a service engineer for Quantel Paintboxes, which is marvellous, and another person on there also had some spare cards for these type of machines. And in addition to that, I've also learned a huge amount of information about these machines, how they work. It's been quite a steep learning curve, to be honest. I suspect I've probably made some mistakes in my previous videos. Yeah, there is a lot to learn about these machines. They are not simple at all. So after I released that last video, as I said, somebody sent me some ICs that I couldn't get hold of from Finland. Thank you so much for sending those over. At the same time as that, I found a guy on the Vintage Radio forum who had some spare cards. He agreed to send them to me. Now the cards weren't exactly the same ones that are in this machine, but that largely doesn't matter too much. The hardware on the V-Series was pretty much generic across several different models. This allowed some very flexible licensing details, which I'll go into in a minute. So I went through a process of replacing various cards in sequence and seeing whether that fixed the bus error, and it did. It fixed it. I was so happy, it was unbelievable. But anyway, it turned out that the video output card that was in this originally, that was what was causing the bus error. I'm not sure what was actually at fault on it, but I slotted in the replacement card and the bus error went away. Now that meant I could actually start booting the main operating system and seeing what happens when that tries to start up. Now unfortunately it didn't start up properly. There was still a whole host of errors that the operating system was throwing up. Couldn't seem to find some files. I'm not sure about that one. That might be a bit of a red herring, but there was an error about the clock not running. Now the clock on these systems is two battery-backed SRAMs. One of them is just a straight battery-backed non-volatile memory. The other one is exactly the same, but it has a clock in it as well. Now why that isn't running, I have no idea, but in my sort of quest to try and find out, I thought to swap that out for the CPU card that I got as a replacement. So I was going to swap that in and try and boot using that CPU card and see whether the clock error is still there or it goes away or something changes. Now at this point I'm going to have to go off at a bit of a tangent because the licensing system that is used on these Quantel Paintboxes is absolutely critical to what happens next. The licensing system on these machines is actually quite advanced for its time. The hardware that is contained in the V-Series is largely the same between all the different models. The way that they turn one machine into another is through software license keys. Now the options that are actually on all of these different machines are quite granular. You can enable and disable very specific features depending on what kind of license keys you have. Now this allowed for the TV production studios to be really flexible with the type of resources that they had available to them. For example, you could have a standard V-Series paint box, you could have a V-Series Harriet system, a picture box, and if you wanted additional resources, if you wanted to turn the picture box, for example, into a paint box, all you have to do was call Quantel, and they would give you a license key that you can install on the machine. It could expire after, say, 30 days, which would allow a very flexible licensing model. So if a TV company needed a few more resources, they needed an extra paint box or something, they could just enable it in software. Now, the mechanism which is actually used is there is actually a software key which looks like a load of random letters. That is tied to the serial number of the machine. The machine serial number is stored in a PAL device which is installed on the CPU card. So the PAL device holds the serial number plus some other stuff, I'll go into that in a minute, which ties the software keys to this physical machine. Right, so getting back to swapping out the CPU board to try the alternative one. Obviously I had to switch over the chip that holds the serial number in to be able to use the other board. So if we just have a quick look at the board here, it's actually this device just here. This has the serial number normally printed on it of the machine. So what I did, I swapped this over onto the replacement board, and unfortunately this is where things get a bit awkward, because what I did when I swapped this over, I installed it backwards. Yes, schoolboy error. Absolutely mortified when I did it. Of course, when I powered this up, it didn't power up. Well, it powered up, but nothing actually happened. So I went, oh shit. Quickly turned it off, looked, and yeah, I put the bloody thing in backwards, and I had hoped that it might have been okay once I swapped it back. So I swapped it back, and yeah, the software started to boot up again, but then complained that there was no serial number or security thing in the machine. So it's blown. Now, obviously, I was absolutely mortified that I'd done this. It was absolutely ridiculous, kind of stupid thing to do. I just wasn't paying attention. I guess it's easily done. I'm sure many people have done it, but it's just, out of all the things to actually install backwards, it's one of the few possibly irreplaceable parts of this machine. But then shit happens, doesn't it? So what does this actually mean now? Essentially what it means is I have all the software on this machine, all the license keys, but I don't have a serial chip to decode them. This serial chip is actually quite a bit more complex than you might think. It's not just a plain text number written into an IC. It's this is actually a PAL device. It has a 40 by 64 array in it, and it basically performs a de-encryption of the license keys. So from what I understand, when you install a new license key onto this machine, the license key is sent through this device, and it actually de-encrypts the key to actually figure out what option is actually being enabled and how long it's enabled for. So unfortunately there's some kind of de-encryption system which goes on in this IC, which is now unknown. And obviously I can't use a chip from another machine because that won't match the keys that are on this machine. These aren't copyable, so it all becomes rather complicated. Right, so with all the bad news out of the way, what happens next? Well, there's a couple of things we can actually look at still. We are going to investigate to see actually how complicated this might be to make a copy of, and actually see how it might be working. The array is actually only, I believe, about 2,500 combinations, so there could be a possibility of completely reverse engineering that to be able to recreate the security chip. The other option is to patch the software to completely bypass any of the checking and just patch it so everything's enabled. If we can manage to do that, obviously it's going to be quite complex, that. But that is just, things can be done. Now, before you all tune away and think, well, there's no chance of seeing a working Quantel Paintbox around here, well, things might be about to change. If I just move this out of the way, and oh, what's this? Oh, what's this as well? So yes, as I said, lots of things have been happening. Basically what happened was I was tipped off that a company who used to repair Quantel Paintboxes was having a bit of a clear out, and they wanted rid of all their stock. Now it turns out I've actually gone along and bought all of it. There is a significant quantity of stuff. Unfortunately there was only 2 actual paint boxes. Well, actually one isn't a paint box, but I'll go into that in a moment. So I now have probably the world's largest supply of old Quantel Paintbox parts. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it all, but there is a lot of it. So hopefully with that and all the knowledge that I've gained, we can actually get a working system. So what on earth do we have here? Right, this box here is a late generation V series. This dates from around about 1996, 1997, I believe. It's much newer than the old system that I had. That was dated around about the sort of late 1980s. So this is 10 years newer. Now, at the moment, this is booting. I think it's working. Unfortunately, it seems that the keyboard and tablet from this machine don't work with this machine. So at the moment all I can see on the screen is a crosshair, and on the console diagnostics output is the system's running. It thinks it's a picture box which worked with the paint box to basically be a picture library, but as I said before, the licensing model that Quantel had was very, very flexible, so this could quite easily be a paint box as well. But until I can get a tablet and keyboard plugged into it and working, I actually can't see what it actually is. Right, the bit on top. This is part of the Harriet system. As I've since learned, the Harriet was a combination of a V-series paint box, one of these, and hopefully that is as well, and a ramcorder. Now this is the ramcorder which makes up the Harriet system. Now what this actually allowed you to do was to record uncompressed digital video into RAM, where you could create some animations and title sequences, things like that. So they were only very, very short clips. It could hold about 12 seconds of video, but that was often enough to do little title sequences or little video idents and things like that, which would make up part of a main program. So this wouldn't be used for video editing. That was another system that was used for that. This would produce little animation sequences. So you're probably starting to think, so is this actual RAM in this machine being called a ramcorder? And yes, it is. It holds about 13 seconds worth of video in RAM. That's full PAL uncompressed digital video. So as you can imagine, there's quite a bit of RAM in this one, and it's quite a sight to behold. Now if you want to see how much RAM is actually installed in these machines, you've got to remember these were from the 1980s. This is one of the spare boards that I picked up at the same time. So that is a lot of RAM, and this is just a quarter of the RAM that's actually installed in this machine, so significant amount of memory. This was probably why your memory cost so much in the 1980s, because Quantel were buying it all. I've also got tons of other bits of useful stuff. I've got magneto-optical discs which are rammed full of Quantel software. I also have loads of spare accessories. Unfortunately, I don't have a replacement tablet and keyboard. I'm still got only the one that came with this original machine. But I have picked up a number of the RAT devices, which is a sort of handheld thing. It's kind of like a mouse, but it wasn't a mouse. I have enough of these stylus tablet pens to keep me going for several lifetimes, and I also have a number of diagnostic bits of equipment which were used to diagnose these machines as well. So they may be useful, but I suspect without the knowledge that of how they actually work, and probably the software that goes with them. I probably won't be able to actually do that much with them, so they're just a curiosity really. So hopefully in the next few days, weeks, whatever it is, I will actually be able to show you a working Quantel Paintbox. I'm desperate to actually try one out myself. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, see how we get on. Okay, thanks for watching everybody. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.